Welcome back to, or welcome to, Dare Tell Darla, where you get to tell your story your way. And the only thing I ask is that it not be fictional. I absolutely want your truth. That's why it's Dare Tell. Okay, it could be anything from a warm and fuzzy story to paranormal to you were abducted from UFOs to I want to set the story straight because this person lied to me or da 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 da. It's your story. Email me to mecalgal@gmail.com. That's mecalgal@gmail.com. Okay, let's get started. Hi, my name is Judy, and this is a true story. However, I elaborated in some scenes. When our folks told we kids we were going to Uncle Jack's dairy farm, it was as if they told us we were going to Disneyland. I asked my best friend Debbie to go with us. They lived in a faraway town called Turlock, and we lived in a cozy little town called Hillsburg. To break the boredom of the long drive, we played the alphabet game. Starting with A, you looked for signs that began with it and then called it out. Whoever got to Z first won. Well, Debbie, who was tired of looking, fell asleep in the middle of the game. While we kids kept searching diligently, zinging from one window to the next, trying to find the letter Z, Debbie wakes up immediately and finds it and wins the game. I pouted. Finally, after hours of being on the road, we saw the white farmhouse, the huge red barn, and the other barn where the cows were milked. We drove in on the sandy soil that crunched under our tires. Aunt Lily came out of the house with her apron on, the screen door slamming behind her and waving to greet us. She had a big smile on her face, and she was my mother's sister. After going inside for a while, we kids went out to explore the farm. There are cows in the field loudly bawling. It was milking time, and they wanted attention. They were enormous animals with turned-in horns. Their bellies were so wide and their udders ready to burst with delicious milk. Their long tails swished the flies away as they lazily chewed their cud and bawled. They had horses too, and a Shetland pony named Darky. And boy, he was not nice. Downright mean, in fact. As soon as Uncle Jack put me on him, he bucked like his tail was on fire, and I landed on a pile of hard cow poop. It knocked the breath out of me, and I couldn't suck it in air for a minute. Man, I'd like to set her tail on fire. Sadly, we learned years later that she had drowned in a canal that ran next to the dairy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. They had a wheel-covered wagon that had been pulled over next to one of the outbuildings. It had a cream-colored canvas pulled tightly over the 3 rungs of the wagon. Debbie and I climbed up onto it and sat on the wooden driver's box. I was the teamster, the guy who held the reins, pretending to maneuver 6 flying horses. You see, the Indians were chasing us, and we had to hurry. Chickens meandered about, pecking at the ground, and if you disturbed them, they ran as fast as their little legs could carry them, feathers flying and clucking madly. Because it was late and getting dark, we had to go in. We ate a delicious dinner of fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, and much more. Now I knew why the hens scrambled when you walked towards them with your arms stretched out. You had to go to bed early on a dairy farm because there were animals to be fed, cows to be milked, and various other chores to get done. Before you knew it, it was time to get up. We kids slept on the floor because there just wasn't enough bedrooms to go around, but even that was exciting. We ate a huge breakfast of toast, fried eggs and bacon, fried potatoes, and pancakes, as big around as your plate. Real butter melted on them, and homemade maple syrup topped it all off. Aunt Lily was a true countrywoman. She canned everything from jellies to okra. Yuck. I happen to like okra. Her homemade bread, though, was absolutely delicious. She made a delicious peach pie for dinner. The fragrance permeated the air. After breakfast, I could hardly walk, but Deb and I still ran out of the house, slamming the screen doors behind us. First thing we decided to do was head towards the barn. We met Uncle Jack halfway there. He was standing by his big green tractor looking at something. Uncle Jack wasn't very tall to me, but he wore a clean and tired-looking old shirt. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Uncle Jack wasn't very tall to me. He wore a clean but tired-looking old shirt. His jeans were dirty and his cowboy boots were worn and dusty. But just think, we were looking at a real cowboy. He had overgrown whiskers on his face, but his smile was genuine. His eyes lit up when he saw Deb and I coming towards him. His hair was thinning and wet with sweat, with a battered old cowboy hat on it. He had tilled the field the day before and had ran over possum. It looked dead, but something or some things were wiggling about in the stomach. It didn't hold our interest long, though, because we wanted to explore the barn. The two-story barn had its wide doors slit open as if welcoming us. We went from daylight into darkness. When our eyes adjusted, we saw a wonderland of real cowboy stuff. Horse bridles hung up on the wall. Farm implements hung everywhere. There were old rusty horseshoes that hung next to an old lantern. Various liniments and old rags and such were sitting on the wooden shelves. A couple of saddles were hung over the sawhorses. But the best find was a big old trunk. It had a lock on it. Our imaginations ran wild, trying to picture what was inside of it. There were pitchforks and shovels, just like all kinds of barn stuff. The smell inside the big barn was hearty to me, heavy to me. It smelled like fresh hay, old stuff, and musty from the lack of sunshine. Way up to the top of the barn, birds fluttered about. We climbed up the hay ladder and onto the wooden floor. There, in the bales of hay, we sang, holding an air microphone to our large audience of chickens and birds. We moved the hay around to build a fort, and we found chicken eggs nestled here and there. We tasted the hay to see why cows and horses liked it so much, but spit it out because we sure didn't. Then we went to say hello to the horses. Uncle Jack saddled up a couple of them for Debbie and I, and helped us onto them. He had a cigarette hanging from his mouth, and when he lifted me up, it burned me. A perfectly round burn mark was on my arm. Man, that hurt. Neither of us knew how to ride a horse, and as we grabbed the reins, the horses took over. They walked us out into the lane and then turned into Uncle Jack's field where they began to trot. We were bouncing up and down on the saddle trying to stay on when suddenly they bolted and began racing as if they were in a real race. We were screaming in terror until they slowed down and walked us back to the dairy. There was a side door to the barn for humans only to go through, and my horse ran right towards it. I crouched as low as I could, ducking my head next to his. Miraculously, we made it through. I learned later he was trying to get me off his back. It worked. Later on that night, they had a party. Folks played their instruments, and my mom played the piano. She played by ear, and she knew all the songs. I can picture her there now, smiling and just banging out those tunes. I was in awe of her. I haven't mentioned my brothers much because my little brother was very young and my older brother wasn't interested in mine and Debbie's antics. So he did his thing and Deb and I did ours. The dairy. Later on in the early evening, Uncle Jack went out to milk the cows. Debbie and I went out to watch how it was done. The dairy itself was immaculately clean. The cement floors were sprayed clean after every milking. The cows came clomping in from the field, and speaking of animals, Tula, that's my dog. Okay, the cows came clomping in from the field, and one by one their heads were directed into holes on a wall. Hay was there on the other side to keep their attention while being milked. There were metal contraptions that had such suction tubes hanging from them. Uncle Jack had attached them to their teats, and they were sucked up in the tubes where the milking began. It was just that simple. There was a radio on very low to help the cows relax. After the cows were milked, it was poured into large metal containers which had a metal lid twisted on. Then the cleanup began. It was all so fun to watch. The days passed with different adventures every day to entertain us. But it seems every fairy tale has a villain in it, and I met mine there. Unfortunately, but sadly enough, it wasn't talked about until years later, when it was too late to make any difference. I tucked away it in the back of my mind where the doors were shut and locked. I can't believe I'm mentioning it now, except I'm told it's part of the healing process. Besides, where that big hole was hidden, it is now full of sunshine and love. Isn't that what Jesus teaches us, forgiveness and love? What a blessing it's turned into, yes? But I'm not going to end this story on an ugly note. All in all, the trip to Turlock was exciting, fun, and adventurous for all of us kids. All the way home, we sang songs and played card games and took naps. When we finally drove up to our home on the corner of First and Tucker Street in Healdsburg, we tumbled out of the car exhausted, but full of memories that lasted a lifetime. The end. Thank you, Judy, for sharing. Who's also my mother, by the way. I've mentioned this before in other videos. So some might believe that some of this is politically incorrect, or just one sentence in particular, but this is for adults only. And so therefore, if you feel like it's politically incorrect in any way, dare tell your side of the story. Write into me. I'll share it. Because that's what this is about. It is healing. And I hope this was a little bit healing for her. When you get your truth out, no matter what that is, whether it's warmth and sunshine and fun, fuzzy, stories and rainbows and all that, it just, it gets things going in you that, it's just exciting. And if it's ugly, it releases it out there. Little by little, get your stories out, because I'm telling you, no matter how you do it, you don't have to do it here. You can, have somebody safe to talk to, because it really, truly will help you in the end. Okay, folks, at least that's been my experience. And I do have a master's degree in human behavior. That's been my training as well. So is it going to work for everybody 100% of the time? I don't know. But I don't know anybody who it hasn't helped. Get your stories out there one way or another. Okay, if you want to send a story to me, write to mecalgal, MECALGAL, @gmail.com, and I will share your truth too. Dare tell.